Hi everyone, this is Alexandra from Beekeeper. Thanks for joining this webinar as part of our B-School educational series designed to help managers lead successful teams. Today's webinar will focus on employee engagement. Since this is such an important issue, we've invited engagement expert Jill Christensen to host. With 3 decades of consulting, speaking, and Fortune 500 executive level experience under her belt, Jill has dedicated her career to engaging employees to improve retention and revenue growth with clients like AT&T, Nokia, Crocs, and Novartis. She's founder and president of Jill Christensen International, a best-selling author and international keynote speaker, and led global internal communications at Avaya and Western Union. Thanks for joining us today, Jill.
Thanks so much for the intro, Alexandra. I'm so excited to be here today, and I'm very pleased that you invited me to be a part of your continuing education initiative. You know, because Beekeeper is a thought leader in the internal communications and employee engagement space, it really seems like such a natural fit for me to partner with you. I know that you have an award-winning communication and operational platform that connects the frontline employees with the rest of the organization to give them a voice. And this is something that I am so passionate about. And you know what I love about Beekeeper is that with your mobile and desktop app, you enable employees to email in real time, even if they're on the move, which provides a channel for top-down, bottom-up, peer-to-peer communication, so every employee can reach and recognize one another. Again, such an important method when you're talking about trying to re-engage employees. So now I'm going to jump right into my presentation, and if anyone on the line has any questions during the webinar, just please click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, and I'll be sure to answer them at the end. And so I'd like to start by talking about human resources. You know, it's the organization known worldwide for Catbird, the evil director of HR at the company where Dilbert works. And in all honesty, I have no idea why HR is positioned this way, even if it is for fun. Catbird is a much better characterization because the truth is, as HR leaders, they are sitting in the catbird seat. And I'm sure no one has ever considered that HR is in the catbird seat because it's also known as an enviable position. So let me explain what I'm talking about. HR has 2 masters. They serve employees and they serve the senior leadership team. And I'm sure there are days when they feel like those groups' needs are not aligned. But the truth is, those groups' needs are always aligned. More than anything, your employees and your leaders want your company to succeed. Human resources is sitting in the catbird seat because they own the space that enables your organization's success, and it's called employee engagement. So we know that when employees are engaged, their performance absolutely skyrockets and everyone benefits. Customers, clients, leaders, the board of directors, shareholders. And in addition, company success is assured because we know the most profitable organizations in the world have the highest levels of employee engagement. However, here's the major challenge. The people who have the greatest impact on employee engagement are not the HR professionals. They're the people who manage your employees, your frontline managers. However, your frontline managers don't own employee engagement. Your senior leaders have outsourced it to HR. So one of the main themes that you're going to hear throughout today's conversation is that in order for you to drive enormous levels of employee engagement, your CEO must own and champion your employee engagement strategy, not your HR organization. And I know that's probably a different approach than you've taken in the past, but I really want you to think about the fact that you can succeed if you approach employee engagement as a team, but you will not succeed if HR is the only player on your team. And again, my guess is that's how many of you have been managing employee engagement up to this point. So I'd like to ask, how is that working for your organization? So today you're going to leave knowing several critical things. Why employee engagement matters, why traditional approaches will not move the needle, a new approach to employee engagement that will enable you to re-engage your workforce and drive enormous levels of business success, and the role that you play in helping to make all of this happen. So let's start by getting on the same page about what employee engagement is by watching a brief video. So the most important takeaway from the video is absolutely the definition of employee engagement. So when your employees are engaged, it means they trust your leadership and they feel an emotional connection to your organization. And because of this, they go above and beyond the call of duty and give you a lot of discretionary effort. And that's why employee engagement matters. You know, if you think about it, your employees go to work every day and they have a choice to do what they have to do to get by or to give you 110% effort. We know that when your employees are engaged, they give you blood, sweat, and tears, and it will show up in your bottom line results. So in the beginning of this call, we talked about the fact that it's critical for you to form a team. You can't be the only player on the team. HR can't be the only player on the team if you were going to succeed in the employee engagement space. A great example of a team, Dorothy and her friends. The reason why I use them as our example is because regardless of where I speak and present in the world, everyone has seen the classic movie, The Wizard of Oz. They understand the characters' personalities, they understand their plight, they know exactly what they went through. So if you think about their journey, they went above and beyond the call of duty and their discretionary effort was second to none. They were stalked by the Wicked Witch of the West, Toto was kidnapped, they were ambushed by winged monkeys, and they were drugged by poppy plants. Does this sound like a typical day in your office whatsoever? And I'm sure all of you are nodding your heads up and down. Yet through it all, Dorothy and her friends did not stop until they achieved their goal because they were engaged. They trusted the person giving them direction, Glinda the Good Witch, and they had an emotional connection to their mission, which was to make it to Oz and get Dorothy back to Kansas. So reams and reams of data exist showing us that engaged workers sell more, they provide better customer service, they make fewer mistakes, they stay longer, they're more creative, they're great brand ambassadors, and they recommend your company as an employer to their family and friends. And note that I keep using the word engaged workers and not happy workers. There are many leaders who are responding inappropriately to the employee disengagement crisis by introducing office dogs and kegerators and ping pong tables into the work environment to make employees happy. But my friends, happy is not the same thing as engaged. Engaged is when your employees trust leaders and feel an emotional connection to your organization. Happy is a feeling people get when the office dog licks their face while they're drinking a beer. And I can assure you that if you have a dysfunctional workplace culture, Fido is not going to stop your employees from resigning, especially your millennials. So even though we have all of this powerful data about the benefits of having an engaged workforce, organizations around the globe are still failing. So as we'll see on the next slide, how bad is it? It's absolutely dismal. According to Gallup, 87% of global workers are not engaged, 70% disengagement in the United States, and the region around the globe with the highest level of employee disengagement is the Asia Pacific region with 89% employee disengagement. And this means that your employees are sleepwalking through their day. They're putting in time, but no energy, passion, or creativity into their work. They don't trust your leaders. They're not emotionally connected to your organization. They're not going above and beyond the call of duty, and they are giving you zero discretionary effort. And just to show you how bad it really is out there, if 65% of your employees are engaged, you are best in class. That's how low the bar is set. If you were to score 65% on a test, you'd almost be failing. But in the world of employee disengagement, 65% makes you a rock star. So what do disengaged workers do all day? Well, we know that they walk around socializing, distracting other employees from being productive. We know that they sit at home and watch TV and eat popcorn because they've called in sick when they're perfectly healthy. And if you're really lucky, they'll spend the time that you are paying them to work to post a scathing review online about your company on Glassdoor. Glassdoor, my friends, is the website where the vast majority of people around the globe go to read reviews about organizations that they're considering working for or interviewing with. And so it is so critical that you have a good Glassdoor review. And not because you've got a great public relations machine in your company, but because you have created an extraordinary workplace culture that people cannot imagine leaving. And therefore, they're going to Glassdoor, they're reading your review, and then they're following through with applying to work at your company. Because I can assure you that employee disengagement does not happen overnight. Every one of your employees showed up on their first day at work willing to give you everything they had, willing to go above and beyond the call of duty, but little by little, our dysfunctional workplace cultures chip away at people's spirits over time. And again, what does it look like when the vast majority of your employees are disengaged and have checked out? It means decreased productivity, creativity, customer satisfaction, retention, increased absenteeism, theft, safety, quality issues. And the granddaddy of them all, and the thing that your senior leadership team cares about most, stagnant or decreased revenue growth. Because we know there's a direct correlation between employee engagement and bottom line results. The most profitable companies in the world and the companies that are growing the fastest have the highest levels of employee engagement. So Gallup conducted the first State of the American Workforce survey decades ago to measure employee engagement. They conduct the survey every year, and virtually no progress has been made. So you may have thought that the video is out of date because it quotes 2013 data, but it's not. Those were the numbers in 2013, 2003, 1993, 1983. So in spite of the fact that companies are spending billions of dollars on employee engagement, and despite the fact that 87% of C-suite executives recognize that disengaged workers pose a threat to their bottom line, crappy dysfunctional workplace cultures still reign supreme. Why is this happening? In my humble opinion, no progress has been made. This is what we talked about at the beginning of this webinar, because traditional approaches cannot move the needle, yet they are still embraced by the vast majority of companies. And what is the most popular traditional approach to improve employee engagement? Senior leaders outsource culture to HR. This is not at all a dig against your HR organization or any HR professionals. Strategic HR people are wonderful. However, as we talked about in the beginning, although HR owns culture change, they don't own the people who have the biggest impact on culture change, your frontline managers. Your CEO owns your managers and can get them to do things that you cannot. Therefore, your CEO, your senior leadership team must be engaged and champion your employee engagement journey. So what is a new and innovative approach to engagement that will enable you to re-engage your workers and drive enormous levels of business success? Next slide, please. The answer to that question is this. Your senior leaders must get involved in and champion your employee engagement strategy. That is the first box, leadership. How do you get your leaders to engage in employee engagement? Data. Executives love numbers. They absolutely eat them up. Why? Because you do not get to be an executive without knowing a thing or two about your numbers. Executives are presenting numbers all the time to their boards of directors, and they are constantly being judged on their ability to ensure that your organization's numbers are directionally correct, that you're meeting or exceeding the numbers. And so it's your responsibility to gather all of the compelling data that you can get your hands on, which shows the correlation between employee engagement and profitable revenue growth, and have the critical conversation with your CEO that unless they are involved in your employee engagement journey, you're not going to move the needle. Savvy leaders are going to get it, and they will agree to partner with you. Then once on board, your CEO must lead a manager town hall meeting where you bring together all of the managers in your organization and communicate to them specific actions that they need to take in 4 key areas to re-engage your employees. And by focusing your efforts in 4 key areas, which we're going to talk about next, you will drive trust in senior leadership and increase the emotional connection your employees have to your company. If you think about it, your managers are the front line to your employees. They are the people in your organization who spend the most time with your workers. So they are the people who are going to execute on specific actions in the trenches that are proven to increase engagement. And notice that I specifically call this model a strategy versus a program or an initiative. If you call it a program, your employees are going to view it negatively because they'll think, oh, this is just the program du jour. Here one day, gone the next. In order for your employees to believe, like really believe that you're serious about re-engaging them, you must execute on a strategy that fundamentally shifts how you operate on a day-to-day basis. Where did this strategy come from? When I worked at Avaya, I led global internal communications, and in that company, we worked on focusing on our employee engagement and increasing that. So I was a part of this initiative. And so I went out and I looked at the 15 companies around the globe that have the highest levels of engagement to see what they were doing. I also looked for trends across all of their strategies, and I immersed myself in the verbatim section of the employee engagement survey scores. And I read what employees were saying about the organization, about the leadership, about the culture, about what it was like to work there. And the feedback was incredibly explicit and real and raw. And I knew that something had to be done. So I created this strategy, and I said to the organization, I have a strategy that I believe is going to work. I said, but it's not going to work unless the leadership team gets involved, because no one sets the stage more for how we do things here than senior leaders. They need to empower our frontline managers to act on a specific set of actions in 4 key areas that I know are going to re-engage employees, and then the senior leadership team must hold them accountable for their results. So we embarked on an employee engagement journey at Avaya, and in 2 years, we increased engagement 11 points, and our stock rose 26%. According to Gallup, a 2-point annual increase is statistically significant. And I'm sharing these results with you to give you hope. If we could re-engage 35,000 employees in 55 countries in a 100-year-old telecommunications firm that was political and bureaucratic and hierarchical, you can absolutely re-engage your employees. And so if you're wondering, who are the benchmarks today? Think about organizations like Southwest Airlines, Zappos, the Ritz-Carlton, and Chick-fil-A. These are some organizations that have employee engagement around 90%, which is incredibly higher than the 65% best in class. These are organizations where their leadership team is engaged, where their leadership team gets it, and where they're going to market consistently inside of their companies, strategically and methodically, in an effort to re-engage their employees. So moving on to the next slide, let's talk about what happens when you have an organization that does not have an extraordinary culture. So I can't see your hands, but think about how many of you were absolutely terrorized when you were a child and you watched The Wizard of Oz and the flying monkeys descended out of the castle and they picked up Toto and they flew off with him, right? It was an absolutely horrifying experience for many children. I think I may have slept with my bedroom light on for a week. How many of you have worked for a flying monkey, AKA a bad boss? I'm sure all of your hands are raised because I believe we all have. I have had a flying monkey, AKA a boss, tell me that I'm going to have a difficult time in life because my standards are too high. I've had a flying monkey tell me that I have some nerve letting my light shine so bright at work. So basically, she was telling me that I have some nerve being myself. And I have had a flying monkey tell me she wasn't going to support me for a promotion because I was the wrong gender. My friends, what are your stories? These images are not a stretch. When employees don't trust your leaders, they go to work every day feeling like they are under attack. A black cloud hangs over their head and they respond by disengaging. However, it does not have to be this way. If you embrace a new and innovative approach, if you enroll your CEO in your employee engagement journey and start building leadership and trust amongst your employees in your senior leadership team, you are halfway to cracking the code of employee disengagement. And so we know that leadership is the first half of the strategy. Moving on to the next slide, the second half of the strategy is the 4-step process. And this is about the areas where your managers need to focus their efforts so that you can increase employee engagement inside of your firm. This is the strategy that I created by benchmarking the 15 companies around the globe that have the highest levels of employee engagement. And it's also the process that's featured in depth in my book, If Not You, Who? And you might be thinking, Jill, Alexandria, beekeeper, there's no way there could be just one process to re-engage all employees in every industry, in every generation, in every country, since every person is different. And my response to that, every person is not different. At their core, people are wired the same way. For the most part, what engages and inspires me engages and inspires you. And what motivates me motivates you. What disengages me disengages you. What deflates me deflates you. Very few people are motivated solely by money. So what do we know engages and inspires the vast majority of people? This. Every person in this world wants to work for a company where the leaders get the right people in every chair and have the courage to remove people from chairs if they're not competent at their job or if they have toxic attitudes. Every person in the world wants to know that their goals are aligned with the CEO's goals so that they know that what they're doing every day has meaning and is adding value and is making a difference. Every employee in the world wants to know that they work in an environment where they have a voice and that voice can be heard. And this is where Beekeeper really plays a role. And fourth, every person in the world wants to know that they are acknowledged and appreciated for a job well done. Bottom line, in order to re-engage your employees, you must fulfill their basic human needs. It is that simple. And it is why I always say to organizations, employee engagement is not difficult. It is about fulfilling people's human needs. So let's delve into each of these boxes quickly so you understand what I'm talking about. When we talk about getting the right person in every chair, it means who you hire and who you fire. Most organizations only hire for a job skills match, and that is a mistake. You must also hire for a values match. I hope your organization has values, and those are things like accountability, customer satisfaction, innovation. You need to understand what your values are because your values are the things that say who you are, right? It's your culture. It's the pillars of who you are. It's how we do things here. And so it's so critical that when you hire employees, you hire people whose individual values are aligned with your organization's values. Why? Because when an individual sees themselves in your organization because of the values match, they instantly feel an automatic connection, an emotional connection to your firm, and that drives employee engagement. Another reason why you have to get the right person in every chair, because if you have people amongst you who are incompetent at their job or who have toxic attitudes, that is creating a real issue inside of your organization. Why? Because when you have people like this amongst you and you do not work to develop them and to improve them and to get them to change, and let me state, I am a huge believer in development. I believe every person has the right to know where they are falling short and what their development areas are, and they need to be given the opportunity to learn and to grow and to improve. However, if you have people amongst you who have been put on development plans and they are not improving, they're not getting better at their job, and their attitude isn't getting better, and they still are toxic and negative, you cannot allow those people to stay amongst you. Why? Because they are bringing down everyone around them. And another reason, when you have an employee in your organization who is incompetent at their job or who has a toxic attitude, every employee around that person knows it. And do you know what they're thinking? Why isn't senior leadership doing anything about this? And in that moment, you're chipping away at the trust that your engaged workers have in the senior leadership team, which means you are chipping away at their engagement. And so it is instrumental that as you're building an extraordinary culture, you bring in people who emulate your culture and you remove people from your organization who don't have what it takes to be a role model for your culture and to have a great attitude and to be great at what they do. It is in your best interest to take those people out of your organization and allow them to work in another organization who does not understand the correlation between employee engagement and profitable revenue growth, and who are okay allowing people to stay amongst them who are not contributing, who are not adding value, or worse, who are sinking your boat. Think about the video. And so I want you to think about whether or not there's somebody in your organization right now who's not in the right chair. And my guess is 95% of you are nodding your heads, because when I speak, when I give my keynote speech live, 95% of the hands go up in the audience, regardless of the industry I'm speaking in, regardless of the generations in the audience, regardless of the country that I am speaking in. Allowing people to stay in the wrong chair is prevalent in organizations, and it is causing active disengagement. So moving on to the next quadrant, creating the line of sight. This is the importance of you ensuring that every employee in your organization has individual goals that are aligned with your CEO's goals. Why? Because when a person's goals are aligned with the CEO's goals, they can see a line of sight between what they do every single day and where the organization is going, the vision that the CEO has for your organization. It's all about goal alignment. And when you align individuals' goals to the CEO's goals, people can see that what I'm doing every day matters. What I'm doing every day is adding meaning. What I'm doing every day is making difference. I am adding value as an employee. And you know what that does? It builds a bond between the employee and your organization. It strengthens the emotional connection that your employees have to your organization. And it also begins to build trust between your employees and your senior leadership team, because employees can see that my goals are aligned with the leader's goals. We are all in this together. We are all marching in the same direction. Employees want to feel connected. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And when you have goal alignment, you are enabling your employees to see that they matter and that they're making a difference, and their engagement begins to rise. Third, building a two-way communication culture. Lots of organizations have senior leaders who communicate openly and honestly and transparently, and that's fantastic. But you need to take this a step further in order to build trust in your senior leaders and to build that emotional connection to the organization, which is the definition of employee engagement. You have to give your employees platforms where your employees can communicate with the rest of the organization and when your employees have a voice. Nowadays, we know that 80% of employees around the globe use mobile devices to communicate, to check their email, to go to websites. It is so critical for you to have mobile and desktop apps that enable your employees to connect with their colleagues without having to go into email anywhere when they're on the move, right? They could be at home. They could be in their car, but in the passenger seat, not driving. They could be waiting in a line at a store. They could be on an airplane waiting to take off. They could be anywhere around the globe. You want them to be able to connect with their colleagues, with the senior leadership team. One simple way to do this is the Beekeeper app. This app is absolutely extraordinary because every single employee in your company can download it onto their cell phone or onto their PC. They do not have to have an email account, and then they can engage in two-way communications, again, with the senior leadership team, with their other colleagues. It's top-down, it's bottom-up, it's peer-to-peer. It enables everyone to be in contact with one another. And if you want a face-to-face mechanism for this to happen, that would be a focus group. It is so simple for you to bring employees together in groups of 8 to 10 and just say, we know that this process in our organization is broken. It's not working the way we need it to be. And we know that you probably have some great ideas about how to fix it, why it's not working, etc. So let's talk. Tell us what you think about this process. Let's brainstorm how we can improve it. And then you execute on what you've heard from your employees. When you give your employees a voice, either via a desktop or a mobile app like Beekeeper or employee focus groups, we know that it drives trust in the senior leadership team, and we know that it drives the emotional connection to your organization. Employees want to know that they have a voice and their voice is heard. So it's incumbent on you to give them opportunities to speak up. And please know that if you don't give them opportunities, if you don't give them applications, if you don't create focus groups, your employees are not just going to speak up at will, because it is not human nature to speak up. People have to be asked. They have to be given those opportunities. But trust me when I tell you, when you give people the opportunity to speak up, they will. Because again, if you have the right person in every chair, you've got a lot of smart people working for you. They've got ideas about what your customers want. They have ideas about new products and services. They have ideas about what you're doing well. They have ideas about what's broken. They have ideas about what's what has been broken for years that you have swept under the rug and never had the courage to pull out and fix. Your people know these things. Give them the opportunity to talk by creating that two-way communication culture. You will not be disappointed. What you hear from them will be extraordinary. And in the meantime, you will be driving engagement and driving trust in the senior leadership team, which, as we know, increases productivity, retention, creativity, and bottom line revenue growth. All amazing things for your organization or company. And finally, recognition. Companies spend billions of dollars a year on logo branded water bottles. My friends, people love free swag, absolutely. But a company branded water bottle is not going to stop your employees from quitting on you if you have a crappy, dysfunctional workplace culture. When we ask employees around the globe, how do you want to be recognized? What makes you feel acknowledged and appreciated? The vast majority of people say, I want to hear the words, thank you. It's that simple, the words thank you. And if you think about it, it's free. You can be saying thank you every single day when an employee does something amazing. But this isn't just about your CEO thanking people. It's not just about your supervisors thanking people. It's not about the President's Award or you sending your salespeople to Hawaii, right? Your top people because they've done a great job. It's about you creating a culture of rampant recognition where everybody in your organization can recognize everybody else. And so, a simple thing that you can do is you can create a 4x6 postcard that many of my clients call values cards. And they write the values on the card, and then you hand these out to all of your employees, and they can check off one of the values that you have in your organization and hand it to a card and say, Kim, this is from Tim. You're doing an amazing job with customer satisfaction. Have a few lines on that card about what your people did, what that person did to get rewarded for that amazing thing. Hand them to people. Post these cards on a wall of fame, on a wall in your organization, an enormous wall that you clear off, and you write on it, wall of fame, wall of honor. Tell your people, we want to create a culture of rampant recognition. We want to celebrate our achievements and our accomplishments. Post the great work that you see up on that wall. Post your values cards on that wall. And another important thing, if you are leading a project or a manager of a team and you guys have an amazing, a huge project underway and you go live and that project does not go live the way you envisioned, right? You're going to have some successes, but you're also going to have some failures. There are some things that you just didn't know, right? And then you're going to see when you go live, wow, we missed the boat on that, or we didn't think about this thing. You guys, it doesn't mean that those team members didn't work nights and weekends. It doesn't mean that those team members didn't not spend time with their family and their friends because they were working 50, 60-hour weeks for months in an effort to make sure this project was successful, right? They gave it their best. I truly believe that nobody goes to work in the morning and says, I'm going to be a jerk today and suck at my job. Everybody in your company is doing their best, but sometimes a person's best isn't good enough. And that's right person, right chair. But for the most part, people are giving you their all. And when you have a project that goes live and it doesn't go as you had planned, turn that into a moment to recognize people. Order the pizza, bring everyone together and say, thank you for your extraordinary efforts on this project. There are some things that went extraordinarily well, and there are some things that did not go as hoped, did not go as planned. So let's spend the next half an hour talking about these things. What worked great? What didn't work? And then let's do a postmortem on what didn't work. Let's talk about it. Let's have a two-way communication culture, right? Where you are telling us what we could do differently next time. And so you turn it into a learning opportunity, and people will leave that room feeling great. They'll feel like you did something wonderful. You rewarded them by feeding them and by telling them they did a phenomenal job. But you were also open and honest with them by saying, there were some things where we missed the mark on, right? So let's talk about those things. Let's write them down so next time we can do them better. But that doesn't take away from what your employees contributed to the project and to your organization. And so that is one way where you can turn around what some leaders or managers might have perceived as a failure. because it is human nature to not focus on what's going well, but to focus on what's going wrong. But I encourage you, as you are shifting your culture, as you are creating an amazing place to work that people can't imagine leaving, you have got to lift people up. You have got to point to what they're doing well. And you know, in all of this, I have leaders who say to me, Jill, we can't execute on this 4-step process. It's more work. But you guys, it's not more work. Think about it. You're already hiring and firing people. You're already setting goals. You're already communicating, and you're already recognizing people. But what I'm purporting is that you just may not be doing it in a way that's driving massive levels of employee engagement, right? So you're already doing the work. My question to you is what you're doing working? So on a scale of A to F, just like you got graded in school, I want you to look at each of these 4 quadrants and score yourself. Which quadrant are you acing? Yeah, we're doing really good at this. And which quadrant are you not doing well? Like maybe you're not doing well a little bit, or maybe you're completely dropping the ball. Like you don't even have a recognition program, or you're not asking your people what they think at all, or none of your employees' goals are aligned to your CEO's goals. Think about if you implemented some of the little things that we have talked about on this call only in 40 minutes. What type of results could you see in your organization a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? That's what's possible when you start putting this into action. And I know that there are many of you saying to yourself, there's something to this. This is what we need. We need to take employee engagement out of the hands of HR. And again, it has nothing to do with HR's competence. It has to do with the fact that even though HR owns culture change, they don't own culture change. I'm sure there is not a single person on this call who doesn't understand the value of having a strategic employee engagement plan. But I know from experience when I speak that only a select few people who hear me will go back and have that critical conversation with your senior leaders. And so it always causes me to be incredibly curious. Even though you believe in the solution and you see that the old way of doing things doesn't work, and I've shared with you a new way, and you understand that the payoff is there, what's getting in your way of starting the conversation with senior leaders that you need their help to ensure the long-term success of your company? And I get that everyone is busy. And many times, I worked in corporate America for years. I've worked in organizations for decades, and I know what it's like. It's very easy to become overwhelmed because you're responsible for so many critical things. And even though you may leave the webinar committed to starting the conversation, by the time you put down your phones or turn off your speakerphone, you might look at your email and feel so overwhelmed again, you don't know how to sort it out on your own. But moving on to the next slide, I know this may seem like a lot, but if not you, who? If you don't make a commitment to start the conversation with your leaders and know that it doesn't matter whether or not you're in HR, you can be in any seat in any organization. But if you don't make the commitment to start the conversation with your senior leaders, trust me when I say you're going to get the same mediocre results year after year, because you know and I know the traditional approaches to employee engagement don't work. Return to your workplace and let your leaders know that you've learned a new strategy that's proven to re-engage employees, but your company, your organization, your association will not be successful without them. Why? Because there is no group of people who have the biggest impact on culture change than senior leaders and your frontline managers. That is how you are going to create a new reality for yourself and for your organization. And to help you start the conversation, moving to the next slide, I have a postcard that is called Start the Conversation, and I can make it available to every single one of you. And so all you need to do is text my name, Jill, to 42828, and you'll have access to data, the data that you need to have the conversation with your senior leaders that shows the correlation between employee engagement and profitable revenue growth. And so there is data on this card that will enable you to you can go to your senior leader and say, look at all of this compelling data that shows how important it is for our employees to be engaged. It's critical for you, leader, to champion this, and then for us to get our frontline managers engaged and doing different things in the trenches in these 4 areas. And again, I'll share that postcard with you free if you sign up for my weekly blog. And that weekly blog also includes free tips and tools that will enable you to re-engage your workers and enable you to be a stronger leader. I also have a book called If Not You Who, Cracking the Code of Employee Disengagement, that's available on Amazon. It includes additional information for you to re-engage and short circuit your journey to re-engage your employees. And so I'm providing all of these resources to you because I so want you to participate and to embark on an employee engagement journey in your culture. Because what I know for sure is that if you're not deliberate about creating an extraordinary culture, you're going to end up with a culture by chance, and it will not be pretty. It will be mediocre at best, and we all know that mediocrity does not drive business success. And so moving to the next slide, what are your key takeaways? The most important things for you to leave with are that put your people first, believe it doesn't have to be difficult, and partner with your senior leaders to own it. So as the title of my book says, if not you, who? You chose to be a leader, which means you're a dealer in hope. And with that choice comes an enormous responsibility to ensure that your company succeeds. The greatest path to that goal is to re-engage your employees. We know that engaged workers give you blood, sweat, and tears, and disengaged workers give you scraps. And for that reason, disengaged employees offer you the greatest untapped potential for you to realize profitability, performance improvements, and productivity, period. And so finally, the last slide in our deck, we want to thank you for getting it. So you saw what the content was going to be for this webinar. And the fact that you participated and spent an hour of your valuable time tells me and tells Beekeeper that you get it. And for that, we absolutely applaud you. You have everything that you need to succeed in this space. Everything. There are tools that are available at your fingertips. There's information that you learned today that you can now go back to your organizations and execute on. And again, I would love for you to text my name to 42828 so I can continue to help you and continue to educate you in this space. And then again, as you know, Beekeeper has amazing resources and apps, both mobile and desktop, for you to engage all of your employees, whether or not they have an email address, which is the beauty of Beekeeper. And so again, never ever doubt yourself or your ability to re-engage your employees. You have everything you need to succeed. You have the power. You have more power than you can imagine. You always had this power. And now it's just about you going back to your organization, having the conversation with your senior leaders, and putting into play some things differently tomorrow than you have today in an effort to embark on this amazing employee engagement journey. And so we have a question that has come in, and it's about if the employee is in the wrong chair, should the organization not try to place them in a more suitable chair or in a different department or get rid of them? Okay, so this is something that we see organizations do all of the time. I call it moving the deck chairs on the Titanic. So if you have an employee who truly is mismatched for their role, and there is not another role in the company where they are a good fit, right? So you need to think about what a person's skills are. So if you think about, I'm making this up, but like a person in marketing, that person might be really good at sales. A person in marketing might also be really good in your communications organization, right? But if your person is an accountant per se, right? Chances are there isn't another role inside of your organization outside of the finance organization. And so if your person has extraordinary skills in what they do, but that person's position is eliminated and there is not another position like that in the organization, then again, that might be an opportunity where you need to get rid of them because their skills are in finance and there is not a role open in your finance organization. However, if the person has a great attitude and was good at their job, but their job is being eliminated, or they want to try something different, then absolutely move them to a different place. What I'm talking about is when you have an employee who's incompetent at their job and there's no other job that they're a good fit for in your company, then if they cannot grow and improve, then they do need to be removed. Or maybe a person's really great at their job, but their attitude is horrendous and their attitude is negative and they are like a cancer in your organization. If you talk with them and you let them know that they need to improve their attitude and they are not doing that and their performance plan has not worked, I still highly recommend that you remove them from your organization because they are bringing down other engaged workers. And again, I understand that this is difficult to do. I get it. But trust me when I tell you that employee is going to land in another organization, in another company, and they are going to be fine. Most organizations in the world don't have very high standards as it relates to whether or not you're a good cultural fit and whether or not you're amazing at your job. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of companies where that person can work, companies that are not on an employee engagement journey and who are okay allowing people to stay in their job when they are incompetent in their role. What I am encouraging you to do is to say, we are not going to be one of those organizations. We are no longer going to be that company. Because as you try to re-engage employees, as you embark on this journey to create an amazing culture, you cannot afford to have people amongst you who are in the wrong chair. The damage that it is doing is extraordinary. Okay? And so moving on to the next question. And again, if anybody wants to submit a question, you just click on the Q&A button and type it in. The next question is, how do I approach senior leaders if they don't think there's a problem? I would say that, and this is attached to the following question. The next question is, how do we measure employees' engagement? The best way to measure employee engagement, and then I'll go back to the second question, is to conduct an employee engagement survey. Excuse me. There are many employee engagement surveys that exist in the marketplace. I highly encourage you to not create your own survey. You cannot piece together questions that you've seen on other employee engagement surveys and believe that your survey is statistically significant and valid. Unless it has been created by scientists and statisticians, your employee engagement survey is not valid, again, unless it is a survey that has basically been rubber stamped by people who do this for a living. So there are lots of engagement surveys that exist in the marketplace. You can Google employee engagement surveys to find them. If you'd like me to help you find a survey that is right for the size of your organization, the amount of money you want to spend, please just reach out to me, and I would love to help you do that for free. And then once you send your employee engagement survey out to all of your employees, you are going to get a number back. And that number is the percentage of employees that are engaged. So you might be at 30% engagement, you might be at 50% engagement. To the second question, how do I approach senior leaders if they don't think there's a problem? A fabulous way is for you to conduct an employee engagement survey, because then it's not just you telling senior leaders there's a problem, it's you bringing to the senior leaders the data from your company where your employees are saying, Houston, we have a problem. Okay? And so then it's not anecdotal, it's not ad hoc. It's your employees saying, we do not like the culture, we don't think our senior leaders communicate well, we don't understand the organization's values, we don't feel like our compensation is where it needs to be, we don't feel like we have the resources to do our job, on and on and on. And so one, again, very easy way to get your senior leaders to see there's a problem is to conduct an employee engagement survey and bring the data to them. Now, if you're going to say, my senior leaders won't allow us to conduct an employee engagement survey, right, because they don't think there's a problem, then again, what I would do is say to the senior leaders, we know, look at all of this data that shows the correlation between employee engagement and profitable revenue growth. I'd just like to ask you, is our company where you want it to be? Is our customer satisfaction level where you want it to be? Is our retention, our employee retention, as low as you want it to be? Are our revenues as high as you want them to be? Are we growing as fast as you want us to? And if the answer to any of those questions are no, then the answer lies in you looking at your culture, looking at how we do things here, looking at the work environment that you have created, because it means that your employees are not being as productive, not as creative, they're not staying as long, they're not providing those great levels of customer satisfaction. And so if the answers to any of those questions are no, chances are it means you have a disengaged workforce. And again, unless you have an extraordinary workforce, like Chick-fil-A, like Southwest Airlines, like Ritz-Carlton, right? Unless your workplace is known around the globe for being amazing, then chances are you've got work to do. And so again, this is really just about you having the courage and going to your senior leadership team and saying, if our organization isn't exactly where you want it to be on all of these levers, then we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to improve. And we know that employee engagement, engaging our workers, creating an amazing culture can drive improvement. And so we've got nothing to lose but then to conduct an employee engagement survey and see where we are. And if our engagement is amazing, if it's at 90%, great, then basically we can just keep doing what we have to do. But my guess is your engagement score is probably going to come in somewhere between 30 and 50% engagement, which means more than half of your people have checked out and they're just doing what they have to do on a daily basis to get by. And that is not helping anyone. So I hope I've answered your questions. I don't see any more questions in queue. And so, Alexandra, are there any other comments that you'd like to make as we wrap this up?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill.
Okay, great. And so, I know that I speak for myself and Beekeeper when I say that I hope you feel confident about taking these learnings and applying them to your own organization. If you have any questions about the webinar or the Beekeeper platform, you can email them to beeschool@beekeeper.io, or you can visit beekeeper.io. And if you have any questions about employee engagement, a survey, if there's anything that I didn't address on the call, I would be more than happy to answer any questions for you one-on-one. You can reach out to me with the information that you see on the screen. You can call me, you can email me, or you can visit my website, Jill Christensen International. And again, I just want to say, every single one of you has what it takes to embark on this journey. Employee engagement is instrumental to the long-term success of your organization because it's instrumental to your employees' engagement levels. And so I highly recommend that you embark on a journey and that you see where it takes you, because I promise you it can only take you to good places and you can only go up from here. So again, we just want to thank you, and please feel free to reach out to myself or Beekeeper if you need any additional information or if you have any questions. And we hope you have an extraordinary day.